How are European leaders reacting to Donald Trump's return to the White House? Are they fearing more tariffs and an America-first strategy? Or are some circles in Europe welcoming his return and tough policies on immigration? I'll break that down and more here on Straight Talk. Hello and welcome to Straight Talk. I'm Yusuf Aram. During his first term, Donald Trump had a bumpy relationship with the EU. He imposed several rounds of tariffs as part of his America First policy. In contrast, US President Biden reassured allies that America's back. But many European leaders have secretly wondered, yeah, but for how long? Now with Trump set to return to the White House, some circles in Europe could be feeling unease, while others could be sensing opportunities. During his campaign, Trump said Europe would have to pay a big price for not buying enough American exports. He promised to slap a 10% tariff on all imports and make Europe shoulder more financial responsibility in aiding Ukraine. His pick for U.S. Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, voted against a $95 billion aid package to Kiev back in April. In the aftermath of Trump's win, French President Emmanuel Macron and German Chancellor Scholz vowed to cooperate closer and strengthen Europe's unity. But will establishment voices that have been critical of Trump be moderated by several European leaders who are welcoming his return? For more, joining me now from Madrid, Pablo Hispan. He's a Spanish MP at the Council of Europe. From Brussels, Samuel Dovery-Vesterby. He's the Managing Director at the European Neighborhood Council. And from Rome, Valeria Gianotta. She's a scientific director for the Observatory on Türkiye at the International Political Studies Center. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for joining me. Pablo, I want to begin with you. A very big political community summit for Europe just over a week ago. The headlines were Europe bracing for Trump. Is Europe bracing for Trump? Are they embracing Trump? What's the general feel in Brussels and Strasbourg?
Well, Trump is the decision of the U.S. people. So what's the Spanish, because I'm now in Madrid, and also the rest of the democratic countries. What we are going to do is to deal with the decision of the U.S. people in a very difficult situation in Europe, with a war, in the east, in Ukraine, with a very difficult situation in the Mediterranean, and with some dictatorships in Latin America. Because also it's not just only about Trump; it's also about his team, his new foreign secretary, Mr. Marco Rubio. So it's what we are going to deal is with a new administration, and an administration that we know well, because Trump was president for 4 years. So it's a new time, and we must to work with the more important country in the world.
Sam, the first 4 years of Trump, it seemed a little rocky between the U.S. and the EU. What are your thoughts? Is this second 4 years going to be better?
Yeah, I think they're going to be equally, if not more, difficult. This time, Donald Trump has created a network of people, many of whom have isolationist tendencies, and many of whom have very nationalistic agendas. That may be appropriate and important for the American people and the people who democratically voted for them, but it does create some friction with the rest of the world on tariffs. And it's not only for the EU, but for many of the other countries around the world. Tariffs will be a problem. Reshoring will be an issue as well. Also, tackling climate change will be very difficult, something that concerns everywhere around the world. And so I think those issues will be very problematic. And then, of course, the problem of security. The Russian aggression is seen very negatively and very threatening, especially on the eastern and southeastern front, all the way down from Ankara into the Balkans and all the way up to the Baltics and Finland. And Donald Trump is promising a peace agreement, but the question is on what terms?
Valeria, right after the election, German Chancellor Scholz called French President Macron, and they agreed that Europe needs more unity. So was this a knee-jerk reaction to Trump?
Well, actually, I think it's rather a reaction from the polls. I mean, the European elections that we had last June, but also a reaction to Trump, because there is much fear that Trump will try to isolate Europe. I mean, and also will request a contribution from some European countries to NATO framework. So in terms of defense and security, European Union actually nowadays is in the position of exploring new opportunities, as well as to touch upon the much needed hot topic of common security and defense. But despite everything, within European framework, there are many dividing lines. I mean, there are the Germany, which is experiencing a very unstable period at the political level. France, which is witnessing again a surge of the right groups. And it seems that the main privileged interlocutors to Donald Trump, as a matter of fact, will be Viktor Orban, Hungary, which has never hid the sympathy towards Donald Trump, also related to the same interpretation of nationalism and independence of the nations from the international community. And eventually a new interlocutor will be Giorgia Meloni, who in the recent time has been changing a bit her stance towards, towards the traditional rhetoric that she's adopted. Meloni has also a great relations, a friendly relations with with Elon Musk, and this has created some turmoils in the recent days within the Italian political frame after Elon Musk has posted something on X against the Italian judiciary by endorsing Giorgia Meloni regarding the migration dossier. So I think within this European Union, definitely there are some frictions, there are some divergent point of views, and definitely if the European Union wants to counterbalance US, has to have a more unity, has to build up on more unity.
Pablo, Sam touched on tariffs, and it looks like Trump does have some protectionist economic policies. He always likes to tell the story about his phone call with Emmanuel Macron threatening to tax French wine and French champagne. So he seems very willing to use the tariff and tax weapon when needed. Now, he also wants to see more American exports to Europe as well. Is that concerning from an economic perspective for the EU, for Spain?
Yeah, Trump is a deal maker, so he wants to make a deal, and he looks the interest of US in a very assertive way. So we know that we are going to deal with a tough president that looks the interest of US companies. So we must to find the way to make deals, and there are issues. Like the question of China, like the sales of weapons, also the question of the electric vehicles. So there are a lot of different issues that we can deal together and look how can find good solutions for US and for European Union. I think it's a bad news what's happening yesterday with this punish against Google from the Commission, 700 million against Google. So I don't want to say that it's a declaration of war, but I think it's not a good start from a European Union position. So I think that we must we must need to find field and to find ways to get deals with US and not how to counterbalance. We need to find ways to go together, because we are living in a very difficult world, and we need to go Europe and US together.
Sam, last time Trump was around, there was increased talk about a European army. Now, Do you think that Europe will be looking to provide its own security his second 4 years?
I think what's happened since the last Donald Trump administration is that the EU has understood the importance of strategic sovereignty, a concept which is not alien to Türkiye and many other places around the world, which essentially means you should have access to your critical raw materials, you should have, to some degree, an autonomous, independent industrialization, and of course, you should be able to protect yourself, and that comes as a consequence of defense and armament. And now the war in Ukraine has exacerbated this need. And when you look at countries, especially in the Nordics, and also when you look at countries in the eastern part of Europe, they are in a missile range from Russia, which is extremely threatening. And what's happening in Ukraine, and also some of the interventions and annexations of territories like in Transnistria as well in Abkhazia and South Ossetia in the Caucasus, it's clear that there is a huge need for protection in Europe. And as a result, we've seen the doubling of the budget in the multi-annual financial framework some years back. And we've seen a whole new emphasis on armament, on EU army, on training, and also on providing the procurement for EU military systems. Now, we're still in the early stage, and I think it's important to remember that most EU countries are under NATO, and NATO still is the bastion and the pillar of our defense and security. But that does not mean that the EU doesn't have the opportunity to arm itself and to fulfill the obligations of higher expenditure and military spending.
Okay. Well, Larry, you touched a little on Elon Musk and Italy. Recently, the Italian president, Mattarella, said that Elon Musk should stop interfering in Italian politics. Prime Minister Meloni seems to have a very warm relationship with Elon Musk. Now, also, the EU and many separate EU member states at times scrutinizing X, could be scrutinizing Tesla or Elon Musk's other operations. Does this complicate things with Elon Musk now being part of the Trump administration?
I think, when it comes to Italy nowadays, there is a huge debate going on because for a long time, the Italian political landscape gravitating around the leftist groups, the leftist parties, as well as within the European Union, has been dominated by another figure who was Scholz. Therefore, there is a huge polarization regarding the opinion. I think nowadays it's a bit how can I say? The time is not mature yet in order to withdraw final conclusion, but definitely we have to accept the fact that we will have this political team in US. Donald Trump and Elon Musk will have a high position within the new institutional architecture of America. Therefore, I think we need to come to terms with this, also because the approach, as it seems, of the new American presidency towards Europe when it comes to economy is not so friendly. We heard Donald Trump say that he would like to impose some tariff on some European products that would complicate further, actually, the general frame. Therefore, I do believe that it's a bit premature, to make some assumption, and definitely we will need to come to terms with the new reality. When it comes to Italy and Giorgia Meloni, as you said, the relations between the Italian Prime Minister and Elon Musk was very friendly. Also, when Meloni went to New York in last September at the margin of the UN General Assembly, she got awarded by Elon Musk during an Atlantic Council ceremony, and actually she picked him directly as a master of ceremony, let's say. And the fact that Giorgia Meloni did not even comment on what Mattarella said, I think makes us in the position to assume that the relations will be at least positive when it comes to the bilateral relations between Italy and US. Mm-hmm. And what definitely I will expect with this American presidency, with Donald Trump as president, that he will adopt more transactional relations regarding European countries. So he will not directly interface with the European Union as an institutional bloc, but rather he will build and he will pursue more transactional relations with some leader, as I mentioned before, and on some topic.
Okay, thank you. Pablo, war in Ukraine, this has been something that has generally unified Europe with overwhelming desire to support Ukraine. Now you have a new administration coming in Washington. Trump says he wants to end the war. He says, I'll do it in one day. Obviously, that's campaign talk, but it seems that he wants to end it. You have a Secretary of State that recently voted against a $95 billion Ukraine aid package in Marco Rubio. You have a Secretary of Defense that has been on the record as saying he wants to see the war in Ukraine end. What does this mean for Europe now? Will Europe recalibrate its view on the war in Ukraine, or will they say it doesn't matter what America wants, we'll go it alone and still support Ukraine?
Well, it's clear that U.S. public opinion has voted to find a way to finish this war. I'm sure that is not going to be putting Zelensky and Ukraine in a defeat, but just in putting the situation in a roadmap to get diplomatic conversations to get this war to an end. And you know, you are in Turkey, and there have been some talks about different issues in your country about this war, and this administration is going to press to find a solution, not a solution that ashamed the rest of the world. Europe is committed with Ukraine and with an Ukraine inside of European Union, and we'll see which is going to be the reaction of Russia, if Russia wants also to find a solution of this war, or wants to continue. For European countries, it's unacceptable that Ukraine could be defeated. So we are going to maintain the support for Ukraine. But we will see with the United States if there is a way to find a diplomatic solution as this administration wants.
Sam, also at the European political community, the Turkish president was there. He talked about wanting to revive the European accession process. Do you see that happening? Do you see the return of Trump changing Europe's view and wanting to go back to enlargement again?
The reason why the President Tayyip Erdogan put that at the forefront at the EPC is because all analysts know very well that Donald Trump, as the President of the United States, will create a lot of disruption. It will create a lot of disruption in the European Union, but also create a lot of disruption for Türkiye, namely in Turkey's relationship with China. Donald Trump does not want that relationship, namely in Turkey's relationship with Israel. Turkey has a very difficult relationship with Israel, if even to say no relationship with Israel, whereas Donald Trump infamously, together with his son-in-law and also with many of the lobbying companies behind him, have a very, very well-documented close relationship both to Saudi Arabia and Israel. Same thing goes for the Eastern Mediterranean and Egypt, places where Turkey and the United States have had problems, most likely will also be exacerbated once Donald Trump comes into power. All to say, there's a lot of issues for Ankara, actually, and it doesn't look so easy. So what is Tayyip Erdogan intelligently doing? He is revisiting relations with the European Union, now understanding that there is a common problem, unfortunately, in Washington, which is Donald Trump, tariffs, geopolitics, and also trade.
Mm-hmm. Valeria, at the EPC, we saw a photo with Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, Emmanuel Macron, along with them, the Greek Prime Minister Mitsotakis, and the Greek Cypriot President as well. Now, last time Trump was around, there was tremendous tension in the Eastern Mediterranean and the Aegean, and a lot of tension between the Greeks and the Turks. Will that play out again, or are we going to see warmer relations between Türkiye and its Eastern Mediterranean and Aegean neighbors?
Look, the main turning issue, basically blocking the accession process and the Turkish path towards the full membership, the European full membership, has been for a long time the Cyprus issue. And I think that as long as some European leaders do not really become aware of the situation and trying to think out of the box, by not just granting support to the Greek administration, Cypriot administration, the situation is not going to be solved. And I do believe that since nowadays the whole regional international scenarios is about to change, and many unpredictable points are on the table also regarding Trump as a president, they may be margin to rethink some stance towards Cyprus and so the stalemate situation in the Eastern Mediterranean as well. What I see as much more feasible is the Turkish increasing role in the Black Sea region rather than a new situation in the Eastern Mediterranean, because Türkiye has been already much active in trying to find a solution as a mediator actor between Russia and Ukraine. Trump has said that as soon as he will come to power, the war in Ukraine will stop. And I do believe that that is the scenario where Türkiye can play a greater role by building up on the mediation that has been already doing since a long time, and also because Türkiye has been a great role in terms of defense procurement, by supporting the Ukrainian army as well. And I think this is the main topic that may change the dynamics, even though, as it has been said, it's not very easy to put into practice. But maybe Trump will need Erdogan, let's say, even because the relationship between the two leaders are very good, and we cannot say the same with Biden, unfortunately. So he may leverage on Erdogan in order to find a solution in the peaceful settlement after the war between Russia and Ukraine.
Pablo, European Commission President von der Leyen has been touting Western Balkan enlargement over the past couple of years, also Ukrainian accession as well. Do you think the return of Donald Trump will push the EU to enlarge again, or will it do the exact opposite and have the EU press on the enlargement brakes?
I think that this is not a question about Donald Trump, it's a question of what's happened with Russia. The neighborhood policy fails with the result of the war in Ukraine. So there is not another possibility for the European Union that to proceed the enlargement policy. Also with some people, some countries that say clearly that they want to join the European Union, as happened, for example, a couple of weeks ago in Moldova, and also in what the governments of the Western Balkans have asked for the European Union. So I think that the next commission that we will start in some weeks, the top number one in the agenda will be the enlargement. There must be decisions, because European Union cannot be a great Swiss. If we want to be a real actor in a very complicated war with big actors as US, as China, as Russia, we should be a big union. So there is no way to avoid the issue of the enlargement in the Caucasus and in the Western Balkans.
Samuel, Valeria, Pablo, thank you for a fantastic conversation. That was truly enlightening as Europe prepares for a Trump administration. Thank you. And that's all for this edition of Straight Talk with me, Yusuf Aram. If you got any comments, please share them with us on X at Straight Talk TRT. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Until next time, take care and goodbye.